Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Donut. Today I'm joined by Colonel Macabre. You can say hello if you want.
Hi.
I am pronouncing that right? Colonel Macabre?
Macabre.
Macabre. Okay. Um, Colonel
It's
Macabre
all good.
is Colonel Macabre is a folk emo project based out of San Jose, California. They just released their debut album, Diary Street Clown, through Messenger Bag Records on streaming and transparent Korean Splatter cassette tapes, which you can pick up a copy of at the link in the description. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's raining outside in California, so I have a nice view outside my living room window.
Mm. It's raining out here too, but you can't really see it super well.
Nice. Where are you?
I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm in Philly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we already start off with a bev and a snack check. I just had some donuts, so I'm pretty full. And I have iced coffee from Dunkin' that they did not give me a straw for, which is wonderful.
Very good. Yeah, I don't know if these are prevalent where you are, but yerba mate, you guys mess with that over there?
I'm not a huge fan personally, but I've heard
Okay.
I've heard great things about it. Um, the
Yeah.
there's also the you ever watch The Cave with Kenny Beats?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did the
Yeah.
episode with Mark Rebier.
Yeah.
Sherba, Sherba. I fucking love that shit. Um,
Um, Snack wise, I got these Dots original seasoned pretzel
ooh,
twists.
nice.
Um, yeah, uh, Dot, if you're listening to this, I don't know much about you except that you look like this and you're making some banging ass pretzels out of North Dakota. But if you want to sponsor me one day, I will happily take your products on tour with me and push your
plug,
product.
yeah, plug this shit. A special emo pretzels.
Exactly.
Okay, so I always like to start off these interviews by asking the artist where their name came from. So where does Colonel Macabre come from? Was there any reason that you chose to stick with that? Did it come from anything? It's like a reference.
Yeah. It kind of started out as an inside joke. Uh, Colonel and Macabre, kind of two words that don't really look like how they sound in terms
Mm.
of how they're pronounced. And I just thought it was kind of funny to put them together. And it kind of stuck. Uh, but when I think of Colonel Macabre as like an entity, I think of this like downtrodden soldier who's just trudging his way through the battlefield of his life. I don't really know how to explain that without sounding pretentious, but yeah, that's just what I tell people.
That's fair. Do you know what macabre actually means? Or is that like
uh, yeah, um, it's kind of just a fancy word for like dark and gloomy.
hmm, I figured something like that. But
Yeah,
cool. And you just felt like that would fit the kind of music that you were trying to make.
yeah. I don't really know why it stuck with me so much, but it did.
Hmm. So the base concept of the record, which is again Diary of a Street Clown, revolves around the street clown himself sitting down in a room, opens a journal at the beginning of the record, which ends up being the contents of the album, before eventually closing the journal and leaving the room. Could you talk a little bit more about how this concept kind of came to life when you were starting the record?
Yeah. Well, about 2 years ago, I wrote the title track "Street Clown," um, and I kind of knew that the project, I kind of wanted it to be from the perspective of this character I made up in my head. Um, and the idea of it being a diary kind of came to mind. And I had some ideas of how to make that idea tangible, but which we can talk about. But I thought a really good way to do that would be to do a little skit at the beginning and the end of the album. Um, and I think that, along with some other things, really helped. Yeah.
Mm. Um, so you just it was more so you just wanted the skits at the end to sort of like you said, make it tangible, or like how did you kind of decide on like that's how did you decide on the concept of just I guess the street clown in general of or the idea like around the record?
Yeah. I mean, the idea that when I wrote that song, I was uh, not going through the best time, just in general in life, and I kind of had this feeling that like life was just playing this constant joke on me, that like some force was. I kept getting this like imagery of this like clown who's down in the dumps. So that's just what I felt like, and yeah, I started writing a couple more songs from this like perspective with this mindset, um, and I kind of liked where it was heading. Um, and then I just wanted it to seem like a really personal release. So I like to imagine you're kind of like reading this character's diary at some points. And at first, I wasn't sure how that would look in the long run or like at the end of the product. But as I kept going, I kind of had this diary idea, and specifically the beginning and ending skit at the end of the album, but then also some things that I threw in throughout the album. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I don't know. I like how it turned out. Um, I think without these aspects, maybe the album wouldn't seem as thematic as it ended up seeming. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm happy with it overall.
yeah, no, it definitely I think helps sort of the cohesiveness of the like of the project itself. Um,
Yeah.
so within that concept as well, there are multiple testimonies from people close to you in your life, laid throughout the record, about their experiences with depression, anxiety, addiction, mental illness as a whole. Um, when you were speaking with them, did you prompt them with any particular experiences, or did you just want them to talk about whatever they felt about those things?
Yeah. So earlier this year, I kind of just made like an open call on all my social media accounts saying, "Hey, I have this project I'm working on right now. If anyone wants to help participate, I'm looking for people." Um, I basically gave like five very vague topic points. You kind of said some of them, but they were like very vague, like depression, loss, heartbreak, just like very general things. I was like, hey, if any of those words, if you think you have anything to say about them, and you're willing to like, send me like 1 to 2 minutes of you saying something personal of how you relate to those, um, and you're willing to share, obviously, um, send them my way. Uh, and yeah, I was kind of shocked about how many people initially responded to that.
Mm.
Like almost right away, like a lot of people hit me up and were like, "Hey, I'm interested." I was like, "Cool." Not everyone followed through, but I was still kind of surprised about how many people were initially interested.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think
there wasn't in terms of like what to say. There wasn't any prompts.
mm, I think I think people want the opportunity to talk about those things and that they just don't get them very often.
Yeah,
Um, so it is cool that that many people responded to it like that. Did you feel like you learned more about those people as a result of it, or um, did it
yeah.
kind of make sense for who they were?
Um, I did, and it's interesting because most of the people that responded to me, they were like acquaintances that I hadn't seen in like years. Um, so I didn't really know much about them to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. So it was kind of very interesting how easily they opened up in those.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's funny, one of the people that responded, my friend Will, he actually lives in Pennsylvania. I've never met him in person, but we're in the same Facebook group.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, originally I was asking people if you could make it in like the 1 to 2 minute range. That would work really well with this project for what I'm looking for. And Will sent me, he sent me like 8 voice memos, and they were all like 10 seconds long.
Oh yeah.
They, yeah, and I ended up using 2 of them, and at the end of the song, "Be Careful" on this record. But like some of them he sent me, it was like voice memo start, and he was just like, "I don't even know why I smoke weed anymore. Is it just because it's something to do?" I was like, "Okay, I can't really use this, but I really appreciate you sending me this stuff."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. How did you decide to organize them throughout the record? Was it um to represent any kind of growth, or was it more sort of like, just kind of like how best they fit in relation to whatever was going on music wise throughout it?
Um, I did loosely try to uh, put these testimonies um, like surrounding songs that fit the themes that these people were talking about.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of like linear growth, like from start to finish, I don't think uh, like the character being played necessarily made any growth. Um, yeah, I think he's just rolling with the punches.
More so just like an overall reflection on the ideas around
Yeah.
them. Okay. So one of the first testimonies on the record talks about the romanticism of mental illness as a result of art on the internet, art in general, and even just and at the internet in general. Was that something that personally resonated with you? Do you think that there's a way for people to talk about their issues in online spaces that is genuine, potentially still descriptive or metaphorical, without the idea that one must be self-destructive in order to make beautiful art, finding still being able to find the beauty in tragedy without allowing that beauty to supersede the problem itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. My friend Kay sent me that one. I really appreciated that when she sent that to me. I feel like I'm a bit old, and Kay is actually a bit older than me. So I don't think TikTok is very relevant for her, but I think TikTok is actually kind of a good example. I don't want to sound like I'm anti-Zoomer because like I have a lot of hope for younger generation, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, there's this weird thing on TikTok where mental illness is kind of glorified and put on this weird pedestal, and like certain illnesses almost start trending.
Yeah.
It's for like the sake of memes and like content. It's like very interesting to me. Um, and I mean, like with a lot of things that trend on the internet, people kind of like hop on bandwagon. Um, and the idea of like someone like faking or trying to stage this illness for the sake of content and memes
Mm.
is uh yeah, I don't know, it's a little fucked. I mean, the thing is that like some of these kids like might really need help, and they're maybe coming to the internet looking for like a true sense of community, and instead they just maybe run into memes, which isn't gonna help them in the long run.
Mm.
um yeah, I think what really resonated with me personally about what Kay said was just the idea of an artist glorifying their pain for the sake of their art.
Mm.
um I know I definitely fall victim to just the idea that like I don't really think the art that I make when I'm feeling good is that potent, which kind of makes me crave that pain for the sake of my art.
Yeah.
Even saying that out loud, like I don't like that. But And I don't know, like some new stuff I've been writing recently, like I think it's generally happier, and I think it's good, surprisingly. Like maybe some of my best stuff yet, but
That's good.
I think even with the sweetness, there's still like an underlying bitterness. I think
Mm.
that's just how I work. I think that's just how my brain operates. I think that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that with online spaces too, it's kind of in like in ways it's kind of always been like that, and it's sort of just jumped from platform to platform in terms of prevalence, from like Tumblr to Twitter to now TikTok and everything. Um,
Yeah.
so it is interesting, sort of how that works. I think it's just the hardest part is in those moments, kind of taking the second to reflect and sort of look at it from like an outside view, in a way of like, well, is this just feeding into the cycle of things versus like, is it, do I actually find something worth anything in this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I had a follow-up question, which you kind of already answered, of, with this, are you concerned about falling under that same trap? I didn't personally feel like this record did, because obviously there's specific discourse about it on the album, among other things, but um you said that sometimes you do worry about that yourself.
Uh, yeah, I do. But yeah, like you said, I guess the record's kind of meta in that way. If it's straight up talking about it, but yeah, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about that personally for my own art. I don't know.
Mm. um so I would love to talk about the record's cover art. Can you tell me who painted the piece, if they painted it, what the process of was actually like making it was, what the final image turned out to be something that you originally had in mind? Did it sort of progress organically, like throughout the process of making it, or were they just mainly left to their own devices and you were like, make something?
Yeah, people seem to like the cover art. It's my good friend Jordan Medina here in San Jose. He's a very good painter. His handle is Jordan the Bass God on Instagram. Yeah, I have in San Jose, I have like a circle of musician friends, and then I have a circle of like physical artists, painters. Yeah, and Jordan and his girlfriend Vera are some of my favorite painters ever. I kind of knew when this project was starting, I was gonna eventually commission him to do something for it towards the later end. Um, Last year, he posted a painting that had it was like an old Western sheriff, and then on the side of the painting, there were like three different frames, and each frame showed like details of like close-ups of stuff that was going on with the sheriff. Um, and I don't know why it resonated with me so much. I grew up for like a portion of my growing up. I grew up in Las Vegas for like 7 years, so like I kind of have an affinity for like southwestern imagery and
Mm,
art. Um, uh, I guess just desert related things in general.
yeah.
Um, but when the record was coming near to a close, I hit him up and I referenced that painting, and I was like, I really love this painting of the sheriff you did. Would you be down to like do a take of this, but with the clown
But make it a
instead?
clown, yeah.
But make it a clown. Um, and he was super intrigued. He wanted to listen to the record if there was anything I was willing to share while he painted it, just so you get the vibe,
Mhm.
which I was definitely on board with. Um, and after listening to like the first two songs, he like messaged me and he was like, I think that the clown should have a cowboy hat. And I was like, you know what? I agree. um, and yeah, there's like some like very technical stuff about the painting that I thought was cool. Like it looks kind of dirty, like there's dirt smudges on it. That's actually, he took this film photograph. Uh, it got kind of distorted and grainy. Um, and he actually just layered that film photo over the painting,
Mm.
and all that film grain ended up looking like dirt.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I just really like the stuff he makes, and I think I like how that painting looks in context of the album.
Yeah, I think it looks really cool too. Was the so there's the clown sort of sitting down in the middle of it, and then there's a close up of his face
Mm-hmm.
towards the top right. Do you know if that was something that he repainted in the corner, or if it was sort of like a copy paste kind of thing?
Yeah, so he painted the clown uh, and the three frames on the side separately, and then he kind of laid it out in Photoshop.
Mm.
Um, we actually tried like a few variations of the layout. We ended up settling with that one.
Cool. So could you talk about some of your musical influences, both overall as what's like sort of comes in and out of your listening cycle, and in terms of what may have actually ended up influencing the record itself?
Yeah, totally. So um, I think the stuff that I started listening to in high school had like a big role in what this record turned out to be, mainly because I'm still listening to that shit heavily. Um, yeah, I got really into like the early Bandcamp bedroom pop days. Like,
Mm.
I mean, stuff like Alex G, Spencer Radcliffe, Teen Suicide, Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Like, of course, a lot of stuff like that. And around the same time, um, I got introduced to bands like Marietta and other twinkly stuff. Like, I really like all the Jack Senft projects, like Midwest Pen Pals
Mm.
and
Yeah,
William
yeah.
Bonney. Um,
I think he's doing some folk stuff now too, right? Or something like that.
yeah, I think under his name, just
Mm.
Jack Senft. I think he's doing some like soft acoustic stuff. But yeah, I think I still take in a lot of that when I'm writing. Um, a big game changer though was a couple years ago. Um, I started to get into like folk music, Americana music. Um, and I was just really into like a lot of the instruments they use. Um, like I got really into like songs with banjos. Like there's a song called Foggy Mountain Breakdown, which like I highly recommend. It's from like the 20s or 30s. And
Oh wow.
if you've ever been like remotely interested or intrigued by how a banjo sounds, it's like the most impressive banjo song ever. But yeah, and there's a there's an artist I really enjoy called Field Medic. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, his like brand of folk music is always leaning on the sad side, which like it was very direct about it. Um, I hadn't really been exposed to anything like that. I don't know. It really struck a chord with me. I was also trying to learn some of his songs on guitar, and he uses a tuning called Open D a lot, which I'd never tuned my guitar to, and that was like a huge game changer. A lot of
Mm.
this record is written in that tuning. Um, yeah, I mean that's another big thing about this record is I was trying out a lot of guitar tunings. Um, I was like, okay, there's these tunings that people use in folk music a lot. There's also these pretty tunings that people use in like math rock and emo a lot.
Hmm.
And I kind of like put myself to this challenge where I was like, what if I try to write some folk songs in these emo tunings,
Mm.
or vice versa? What if I try the other way around. And that's what a lot of this album is. It's kind of me messing around and challenging myself.
Cool. So then with that also, the song Ugly marks the first pretty distinct difference in the sound on the album. With a lot of the melodies and tones and everything leaning a little bit more towards that emo influence. Did that song differ from writing any of the other songs on the record? Because it's also I think it's either one of two or one of three instrumental tracks that have a full testimony throughout it. Were those songs written with the intention of being instrumental, or did it kind of just work out that way that it worked better?
Yeah, there's three of those instrumentals on the album. My voice memo app on my phone is filled with just like little musical ideas I have, and I just like want to jot them down so I don't forget them, because I have a tendency to forget things if I don't jot them down. And I think some of them are better than the others, but eventually I'll be really happy with one of those instrumentals, and I think it's like worthy enough to be an instrumental track. And I knew I at least wanted three for the sake of the testimonies I knew I was going to receive. And Ugly was one of those instrumentals where I was like, yeah, I want this on here. And it's funny because the original take of that song, the guitar was all clean. There was no distortion. And it was a lot softer of a song. I was in the studio and I was like, what would this sound if I just made it crunchy? And I really liked it. I don't know. I don't know if I was just listening to like Knocked Loose or something on the way to the studio, but I don't know. I was just I was in the mood that day, and it stuck. Yeah, I mentioned Alex G in that previous question. He's very inspiring to me because he kind of challenges the rules of like what an album has to be in terms of its layout or just its cohesiveness or how it has to sound. An example I like is his 2017 album Rocket. It's like primarily a soft indie folk album. Like halfway through the album, there's this 2-song run that is just like out of nowhere, so aggressive and abrasive. Like people compare it to like a Death Grips. And then after those 2 songs, it just goes back to like a soft folk record, like that weird manic breakdown never happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people loved it. I don't mind having like random heavy moments on my album. I mean, my albums just end up being a culmination of the sonic palettes that I'm consuming just in my everyday listening life. So
yeah,
and like I listen to a lot of heavier stuff, so sometimes I want to make heavier stuff. So
cool. So who's featured on Old Dog? Because I'm fairly certain this is the only feature on the record. So I was curious to know the reasons or any of the process behind that, and whether or not they had any other testimonies on the record or if they were just separate, like as that feature.
yeah, that feature is my girlfriend Ruby. She's the one talking on the song Dark. She also has a little anecdote at the end of the song below. Yeah, when I was writing that song Old Dog, I knew I wanted it to be a duet. With the original demo, it was just me singing both verses. I was like, okay, well, that's not a duet. So I had this idea of in the second verse just pitching up my own voice, because a lot of the artists I listen to mess with like pitch shifting. I thought that might be cool. I was like, no, I kind of want this to be a real duet. Um, and yeah, I got Ruby on there. She did her thing. Um, yeah, I don't want to talk too much about my new music, but so far it's a lot more grand instrumentally. Like
Hmm.
Ruby's a very good cello player, so I
Oh,
got some
nice.
cello. I got some cello on my new music.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
shout
think
out.
there are some strings on the album too, right? I'm pretty sure. Maybe not.
Yeah, yeah. There's like a little string section on one of the interludes, but that's about it.
Hmm. No, that's really cool though. I love that shit. It always makes it just well, yeah, I sound more grand. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So the penultimate track, tapping out, repeats the phrase "What happens now" and several times throughout the chorus. This is my little cheesy thing. So, what happens now? Do you personally feel? Do you personally feel a sense of growth having finished making, or and now having released the record? Since I know that it isn't necessarily something that's touched on within it. Um, is the album something that you kind of see as something to return to, something to help bring closure, or to maintain that intentionality of growth, or just again that sort of objective lens?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do feel like there was some growth, but I think honestly, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of these songs were like 2 years in the making. Like my life has just changed a lot since I started working on this project. Um, I do think it's something I'm going to return to, though. A lot of the themes are things that I still struggle with. Um, in some ways, I did get closure maybe from some of it, but yeah, I don't think I don't think a lot of the troubles that led me to make some of this music uh, are going to fade. So probably going to touch on some of that in the future in my art. Um, I think from a technical perspective, just as a musician, I learned a lot. I kind of know what I want from my songwriting now,
Mm.
like kind of what I'm satisfied with. Um, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe I don't feel like I've grown as much as I wanted to since I started working on this. But I think that I did grow a lot. This is Odin. He keeps messing with me.
Oh
Sorry.
my God. What a little devil. That's so cute. I kicked the cat out before we started because she was gonna meow or not stop meowing. That or you would probably see her back there. One or the
Yeah.
other. Um, so is there anything that you would like to clarify about the record? Anything that you think people should um take away from it, keep in mind when listening if they haven't already?
um, yeah. I mean, I hope that people find stuff to relate to in it. I hope people enjoy it. Um, on like it's I guess like on a less serious note, something funny that I noticed is like clowns are kind of like trending in popular culture right
Mm-hmm.
now, like clown imagery. Um, I think like the last time this happened to this degree was like in like 2017 when people were like filming these like creepy clowns like in the woods.
Yeah, when people were showing up and then yeah,
Yeah.
they get like
Um,
hit with their cars or whatever.
yeah. It's like I don't know kind of what started this like renaissance of like clown culture and imagery.
Mm.
It's just like interesting. I kind of wonder if people think that I'm like going with this aesthetic just to like bank on popular culture right now. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean this has been like a long time in the making. So I think the timing is just convenient in a way.
Do
I
you
think in the
think
music. I think in the music sphere, uh, I think it's getting popular maybe because of like bands like The Garden.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and so like I wonder like because like when my band goes on stage, we were like some pretty minimal clown makeup. I was like, are people gonna think I'm like ripping The Garden? It was like we were very different projects.
Hmm.
Um, they're kind of like a jester clown kind of thing, and we're kind of just like sad rodeo clowns. I don't know. I
Sad
don't
cowboy
know.
clown.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think that that is something that will be to your favor, or do you think are you more worried about it, like people being like, oh well, you just jumped on the bandwagon, or do you not really care?
Um, honestly, I don't really care. If people like it, cool. If people don't like it, whatever. I do wonder if people think that like it's gonna be my shtick for like as long as this project lasts. Like, is my next album gonna be clown themed? It's like, no.
Now the clown becomes a cook. I don't know.
Yeah,
Chef
yeah,
clown.
yeah. Odin. Yeah. Yeah. I probably am gonna have some new themes or aesthetics in future like album rollouts, but I think the clown era ends here.
Mm. So those are all the questions that I have for you. This is your time to plug any social media or any other links to things that you have. Those will all whatever you mentioned will also be down in the description, so you guys can find them there.
Cool. Yeah. Honestly, just follow me on my Instagram. It's at Colonel Macabre, one word. I have a link tree in my bio that'll take you to like anywhere else on the internet that I'm like kind of relevant on. My YouTube page, you can find that. My Bandcamp link tree, my Instagram link tree, as well as my Bandcamp. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's another like private account on Instagram named Colonel Macabre, which I noticed. It should be pretty obvious which one I am, but
Hmm.
I think I need to like DM them and cut a deal. Like, hey,
Have they?
maybe you wanna
Is
switch
it
your thing up.
is it like spelled pretty much the same, or is it like a like Colonel Macabre like one or like
If I
something like that?
recall correctly, his is like I think his is like Colonel underscore Macabre, and then mine is just Colonel Macabre, one word, like no
Hmm.
special characters. Yeah, this should be pretty obvious which one I am.
Hmm. Gonna say the dick riding is insane.
Yeah, for
Um,
real. Jeez.
uh, cool. Well, thank you for speaking with me. It was very much a pleasure. As I mentioned, you guys can order the album on tapes on transparent green tapes through Messenger Bag Records. Again, that'll also be linked in the description. Go check out his Bandcamp. Go check out all the things. Yeah, thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. It was very nice talking to you.